this evening. Just thanks so much for inviting me to come and offer the program on this book, A Guide to Shamatha and Vipashyana Meditation by Thrangu Rinpoche. So I am taking a look at my calendar. Let's see here, and to make sure I've got it right. Okay, very good. Yeah, we have a really wonderful opportunity to talk about meditation and putting it into your everyday life. And I was asked to try to create, sort of a meditative environment here, and so I thought it would be fun for us to do some meditation. But you already have, right? You've been meditating for like what, 15 minutes already, right? And I thought it might be good then for me to start with a little bit of an introduction as to what we're doing. And let's see here. I was looking for my let's see. Oh, so many things to click on the here to look at. So in any case, I think the main thing that I was interested in doing was finding out first how many people here are regular meditators. Because I'm kind of curious. If you want to use your raise hand function, you can show them how many people are regular meditators. Let me view this as a gallery so I can see everybody. Oh, wow, a lot of people are regular meditators. This is good. Okay. Well, that's really excellent. I'm happy to hear that. And how many people find it slightly challenging to get on the cushion sometimes? Slightly challenging. Yeah, okay. Got a few. Okay. Yeah, so I can understand that because I like you sometimes have trouble getting on the cushion. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Uh, and It's one of those things. I was talking to one of my Dharma friends last night, and she said, "Wow, I know that meditation is so good for me, and that I'm much more calm and balanced when when I actually meditate, but I just can't seem to get on the cushion. What do I do?" And I said, "When you find out, let me know." Yeah, but I think it's one of those situations where you know, from the past, where a lot of us have the wish to do meditation practice, and but we don't really have a space in our day to make the time to actually practice. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage everybody to do is because we're going to be doing even though it's a very slim book, um, that you can if we have like maybe I think maybe four meetings or 4 months to look it over, because we meet once a month, and then hopefully there'll be some time in between for a little bit of homework, and that sort of thing. But I think that one of the goals of the idea, I think that the reason I was asked to do this was so that people could feel some more confidence in doing their meditation practice. And so I'm going to try to be like a meditation cheerleader, and also try to help with the problems and difficulties that can come up as we sit. And so I think, yeah, thanks, Wendy Sue. I appreciate that. Someone had asked in the chat, how can we get the book, and Wendy Sue put it in the chat. And thanks for everybody who texted or messaged that they are a regular meditator and that raised their hand. Thank you. So really appreciate that. Yeah, there's at least 2 different places that you can get the book, and it's actually not a very long book. It's quite short. And I wanted to begin by making the aspiration that through this evening's teaching that we find our way to the cushion, and that by finding our way to the cushion, may we sit to benefit not just ourselves, but all sentient beings. And I think that's a good aspiration to start with. Thrangu Rinpoche, I think what I'd like to do is just cover the first part of Thrangu Rinpoche's presentation, because he starts with the why. Why do we practice meditation? And he writes that we're looking for happiness, basically, in the short and the long term. He says when we speak of happiness, we usually mean, like a feeling of physical or mental well-being. But he says, but in order to attain that, our mind has to be at peace, because as long as our mind is without peace, then no matter how much physical well-being or pleasure we experience, it will not provide, he says, true happiness. But often the term that gets used is lasting happiness, because most of the experiences of well-being or pleasure or happiness that we have are they may be very fleeting, and because they're fleeting, we can't really see them as being lasting or true in that sense. So he says, on the other hand, he said, even if we lack the most basic physical conditions for comfort, and our mind is at peace, we will be happy. And this reminded me about when Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, the founder of our centers, first started teaching in the United States. He was basically a person coming from a country that had very little in the way of technological or mechanical or any other kind of development. And he came to this amazingly advanced, scientifically and technologically advanced society. And so naturally, he said, you might think that as a person from Tibet, where we were, still using horses and so forth, and mostly being farmers, that we wouldn't have anything to offer to you in this technologically advanced world you live in. And he said, on the contrary, he said, I think we have something that you don't have. And he said, that's a peace of mind. He said, we don't have a lot, and we're not wealthy like you are. He said, but I do feel we have something that you would like to have. And that thing we have that you would like to have is a feeling of peace of mind. And he said, I'd like to share with you some of the methods we use to cultivate peace of mind. And so that made us very curious, and that allowed him to both compliment us on our technological advancement and yet say, I think there's something missing, and maybe I can help you get that. And so he did. He taught us meditation, and Thrangu Rinpoche continues in his presentation. He said, we practice meditation to develop a state of mental happiness and peace, because even if physical conditions are poor, we can still have mental happiness. And I think we've seen this in our own lives. We've known people who have been incredibly wealthy and very miserable. Whereas on the other hand, we've met people who don't have a lot, or who are even suffering from great illness, and yet they have an incredible peace of mind, which goes to show that, as my dad, the recovery guy, used to say to me, happiness is an inside job. It's something that we can produce for ourselves with ourselves. And I want to share a photograph with you that my friend Kim sent to me recently. I was really touched by this. It was drawn by a child. And let's see here. And not just any child. Let's see if I can find. Yeah, here it is. Okay, I'm going to have to blow this up. I wonder if can I make it bigger, bigger, bigger? Oh, yeah. Okay, very good. Okay. This was drawn by a young child who had just been taught about meditation. Let's see if I can just get the picture. No, I guess not. So I don't know of any other way to show you this without showing you everything, but it's a monkey who is meditating, and the monkey's thought balloons has the word joy, as well as the word wisdom, love, compassion, and awareness. And so he says, hello, I am Monkey Mind, and I give you one banana. And then he says, Monkey Mind say, no, 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 give me 3 banana. And I say, I give you a job. Monkey Mind say, what job? And I say, listening job, feeling job, open awareness and breathing job. It says, and then, okay, I do it now. And Monkey Mind is calm. And finally, Monkey Mind is Buddha. So I thought that you would get a kick out of seeing this little, and it says, thank you. This was written by a child for whom English is a second language. And let's see, I'm going to stop the share for a second, and then I'm going to find a picture of the kids. Let's see. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right. So Kim is visiting a monastery in Nepal, and these are the little monks. One of the little monks drew that picture of the monkey mind and told the story of the monkey mind. And so that I just thought that was the most darling thing. So my friend Kim is currently in Nepal, attending Tergar Institute, which is operated by Tergar International under the guidance of Mingyur Rinpoche. And these are some of the young monks who live at the monastery that she's visiting. And so it looks like they're learning their meditation pretty young. And I like the way they're learning it from Mingyur Rinpoche, where he talks about meditation not as necessarily being something regimented and not fun, but as something that anybody can do, anywhere, anytime. And so when we think about our own practice of meditation as adults, we might take it a little bit too seriously, and we might benefit from. That's why I showed you the picture, because I thought it might be fun to kind of remember the curiosity of a child and the easiness that a child has in understanding what we as adults find complex situations. And so I love the story about the monkey. I give you 1 banana. No, 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 I want 3 banana. So I think what I'm getting from that part of the English in the story is that the monkey mind wants more and more and more and more. And so in order to calm that down, you give your monkey a job. And the job is being, feeling, listening, being present, being aware. And that is what we have the potential to give ourselves to, the practice of this. And as one of my teachers said, they don't call it the instant perfection of meditation, they call it the practice of meditation. So, Thrangu Rinpoche says that this practice can result in well-being and goodness if we can find a way to work with the mind that we have. And so I'm really glad I was able to show you the monkey mind poster. I'm going to use that in teachings for the next week or so. I just am so captivated by that kid's drawing. It's just lovely. And so Thrangu Rinpoche says the reason meditation helps us is because we normally have a great many thoughts and many kinds of thoughts running through our mind. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant, even agitating or worrisome, he says. Now, if we examine the thoughts in our mind from time to time, he said, we'll see that the pleasant thoughts are comparatively few and the unpleasant ones are many. And so then he says this means that as long as our mind is ruled and controlled by the thoughts that pass through it, we will be quite unhappy. To gain control over this process, we have to begin with the practice of tranquility, developing tranquility or shamatha meditation, which produces a basic state of contentment and peace. And then he then, of course, talks about the example of the great Tibetan saint Milarepa, who lived on very meager food and very little clothing and a cold environment and so forth. And he said, yet his spiritual songs, the spiritual songs of Milarepa, reveal that he has a great deal of contentment in his heart. And he said he saw every place that he went to, no matter how isolated or austere, as beautiful. And he experienced his life as being extremely pleasant. And so then he said, if we cultivate this mental contentment and peace, we might actually be healthier and heal more easily. And of course, those of you who tune in to the brain scientist podcasts and understand brain science know that this is actually true. My friend Dr. Julie was part of one of the tests where they actually did immunology tests on people before and after several weeks of meditation practice. And so in any case, this is something that we can use to help ourselves. But, we do have a lot of other habits right now that we may have to set aside or engage with creatively if we're to actually find a way to settle down. So Thrangu Rinpoche says, he said the reason that healing is more quick and more complete when you're a meditator, he said, is because one of the primary conditions that cause these types of physical illnesses are mental agitations, which he said produces disturbance in the subtle energies of the body. Those of you who have worked with acupuncture know how this works, that sometimes imbalances can happen in our subtle energy within our body, and we could be it could produce discomfort and maybe even illness. And so Thrangu Rinpoche says, if we practice meditation, our mind settles down and the energies moving through the subtle channels of our body, the energy of our body returns to their rightful functioning. And Milarepa, even though he was living in very severe circumstances, actually lived a very long life with relatively health. He said he was extremely vigorous up until the end of his life. But that's he called these the short-term benefits of meditation. There are also long-term benefits of meditation. He said it's to become free of all suffering, which means we no longer experience the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. This attainment, he said, is called supreme attainment or enlightenment. And the root of this attainment is the practice of meditation. And so he talks about the positive and negative thoughts that run through our mind. But he said we also have many negative habits that we've been accumulating from beginningless time. And it's only through removing or mediating these negative habits that we can actually free ourselves from suffering. And so he said, we cannot simply remove these disturbing emotions, or kleshas, as they're known in Sanskrit, by saying to ourselves, I will not create any more negative emotions. He said, that's not going to work. He says, we don't have the necessary control over our situation. He said to actually begin to sweep away these negative emotions, we need to practice shamatha meditation. And he said when we begin to practice this basic meditation, he said we usually find that our mind won't stay still even for a few seconds. But this condition is not permanent. This agitation is not permanent and will change over time as we practice. He says eventually we'll be able to place our mind at rest, at will, at which point we will have successfully set aside and swept aside these disturbing emotions. Then he said, after we develop this tranquility, then we can begin the next stage of our work, which is to really come to know the mind and know what the mind is and how the mind is. He said we can apply a second method of Vipashyana, or insight, that consists of learning to recognize and directly experience the true nature of our mind. And then he said this nature is referred to as emptiness and luminosity. Some people use the word awareness or rigpa, but he said the nature of our mind is said to be emptiness and luminosity. Now, emptiness is a difficult word, and I remember listening to His Eminence Tai Situ Rinpoche, one of the great meditation masters of the Karma Kagyu tradition that we belong to. He said he didn't like the word emptiness at all. He said, I prefer another word, he said, because emptiness makes most people who are English speakers think of the number 0, right? And that's not what emptiness is. He said emptiness is actually, he says, I think of it as being limitlessness. That mind has no color. It has no shape. It's not made of matter. It has no center, no edge. It's truly all potential. But because we don't know that, he said, we take this vast and amazing thing. Situ Rinpoche said this. We take this vast thing, no color, no shape, no location, no beginning, no end. He said, we take this vast thing, and then through our habitual tendencies to focus on ourselves, he said, we take this gigantic, massive thing and squeeze it and crunch it down to the very smallest thing possible, which we then call me or I. And so he said, we take this massive, limitless thing and then crunch it down into something that's artificial that we call me. And that's where we end up. And when we sort of wake up from this, from having done this to ourselves over a number of years, because everybody said, got to go to school, got to get a job, got to be a productive member of society. My Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, I both hate to quote him on this, and I love to quote him on this, because he said, look, he says, I don't blame you guys. He says, it's your education system I blame. He said, it's not your fault. He says, it's not your fault. They taught you to be this way, you know? And he said, I come from a different place where we have a different system, you know? He says, it's not you guys' fault. He said, but we'll help you with that. We can help you sort of stay with and retain the important things you learned, but unlearn the things you sort of need to unlearn so that you can see how your mind is and be with your mind in a way that's not tense and pressured and so on. But I love that. I will always remember that time. He says, it's not your fault. You're not to blame. I blame the school system. Oh, so true, right? So, okay, so now we have this situation where we're just now hearing, oh, you mean I have a mind and it's not like all of this and it's like something else? You know, I guess we could call that news you could use. Anyhow, so what he's saying is, he says, you can't say to yourself, oh, I'm going to get rid of all my negative emotions, like starting right now, because we don't really have a technique or a method for it. And so he's saying that we have to start with technique and we have to start with method in order to eventually go beyond all of that. So then he says at the end of this paragraph, he says, when we learn to recognize the nature of mind as empty luminosity, and by the way, I forgot to explain luminosity. Emptiness is the non-establishedness of the mind. It's not a material thing. Luminosity is a word that it's basically what other kind of word can you use? They call it clarity, radiance, luminosity. It has lots of different descriptive phrases, but what it means is it refers to mind's ability to experience and to know things. It's mind's ability to experience and to know. They call that mind's luminosity. Some people, the Canadian translator Yeshe Jamso uses the term cognitive lucidity, which didn't used to help me much because the whole cognitive thing like didn't work. It was a little clunky. It didn't work for me. But I understand what he's meaning. What he's meaning is that we can cognize, we can know things. Because look at the variety of experiences we're having right now. Our mind is actually experiencing the room we are in right now. The skin is telling us what the temperature is and whether it's moist or not. The nose is telling us what smells are there. Ears are telling us the sounds. The eyes are bringing in visual information. The tongue brings in taste information. And all of this is experienced through something called the mental faculty. You know, we have the five sense faculties, but we also have, according to the teachings of the Buddha, we also have a mental faculty, which the eyes cannot think, the ears cannot think, but the mental aspect of our mind can think. And so through that, we experience this vast array of colors, sounds, and all kinds of other things, including thoughts, ideas, and memory. All of this arises in our mind, and it's sort of magical. But because we've spent our entire lives thinking of it as like a money-making tool, you know, we have to make a living and we have to try to build a life. And, you know, we've only related to our mind as to being something that we use. But what if mind was something that we could come to know and come to feel at home in? It's just something worth considering. And that's what he's saying in this first part of the book. He's saying, when we learn to recognize this nature of mind, this awareness that we possess, and rest in it, all of the disturbing emotions that arise in our mind will be seen, they'll be seen for what they are, which is moments, you know, just moments, momentary experiences. And he said, and they can actually be allowed to disappear. Like the ocean waves, the Buddha used many, many similes and metaphors to describe mind and its activity. My favorite one is the ocean and waves, because when a wave rises up out of the ocean, it looks momentarily like something. Maybe it looks like a bird, maybe it looks like a monster, but then it always disappears back into the ocean. And in that way, thoughts arise from the mind. And if we just look at them and don't engage with them, they will disappear back into the mind. And in seeing their arising and disappearing, we learn something about how the mind is. And we can begin to make an assumption about and understand what mind is from that, just that one little experience, which I'm hoping we'll have here in a minute, because we're going to meditate together in a minute. And it says, we can allow these disturbing emotions to dissolve into emptiness. Therefore, he says, freedom from disturbing emotions, which is called by some Buddhahood, depends on the sweeping away of these. I talk about, I don't say, he says here, the English translator for this says get rid of. But I think it's more like we see them in perspective and they don't have the same power anymore. And then we can gradually learn not to pay so much attention to them. And so he says, this is what we do with the practice of meditation. It starts with shamatha, or tranquility, and vipassana is what follows. And so anyhow, I think I'm going to stop right there and see if anybody has questions or curiosities. You can, about meditation, about what we've read from Thrangu Rinpoche, and you can type them into chat. And I'm going to take a peek and see if you have questions. And if you have any, you could also raise your hand if you're on a device that does not have chat. Okay, here we go. Wendy's question. What's the best way to handle monkey mind when it takes over during breath counting on the cushion? Oh, fabulous question. I'm going to get to that here in a minute. How do we walk through the world when we're weighted down by doom and gloom? Boy, I'll tell you what, we have a lot to work with right now, yeah? Am I right? Last evening, I don't want to get in particulars. I talked to someone who had just had a very bad day. And there's somebody who lives somewhere else in the United States. And they were feeling really downhearted because they had disappointed themselves. And they were feeling sort of strung out, emotionally, because of a lot of bad things that had been happening. And of course, the world, am I right? The world has been, it's been really hard to be in. And she was really worried about this. And I, and we talked about it a little bit. And I said, well, one of the things we can do when this happens is we can take one step back from the whole thing and just see if the mind can come to rest on an object. Could be any object. I said, you can open up the window shades and look at birds, or watch the squirrels in your yard. Or you can play nature sounds through your headphones or go for a walk. It's going to be very important to just interrupt this flow of story and spinning and spinning and spinning. And I think that this is one of the functions that I'm hoping we will learn as we're doing this, because there is what's going on in the outer world is a great deal of turmoil. There's so much pain and suffering right now everywhere because there's been this societal power struggle that we're all in the middle of. And some folks think that there are winners and losers in society. And this is causing a great deal of pain because the winners feel that they need to let the losers in on something, and the losers would rather be winners. So it's getting pretty weird. Because if I was just reading in a Dharma book today that said where there's winners, there's resentment. So if we could have a different basis on which to base society, but it's been this way for a bit, so we're going to have to find different ways through that. But that's a society problem. But what we have to deal with is our stress over it. And so I think taking good care of ourselves, making sure we get enough sleep and so forth is very important. And to be able to recognize a spin when we get into one. And to be able to have people who we can call when we're in a spin and get a hand, because that's what ended up happening with this person that I called yesterday. I wasn't even supposed to talk to them at that time. I was supposed to talk to them much earlier in the day, but we had to reschedule. And it turned out earlier in the day they wouldn't have had that conversation because that situation had not arisen for them yet. And I'm really happy in a way that it happened the way it did, because we were able to talk about the idea of just unplugging from that stimulus and then finding something to change perspective instantly in the situation. Because that's what happens when a person's sitting in meditation. A thought arises, and our tendency is to think that all thoughts are important, which is probably why all the algorithms on social media work, because everything is important. Everything new is somehow important. And so that's why getting off social media might be everybody's best thing. But failing that, if we can find a way to level out all those things that we are thinking of as being important by telling ourselves for an extremely short period of time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, nothing is important. Nothing is important. We can actually not worry about doing anything and letting go of each thought that arises, because they're all equally unimportant for the period of time that we're in. Okay, for the period of time that we are practicing this discipline, all of it, you see what I'm saying? It's like just for the period of time. We're not going to go through our whole life like that, because otherwise, how do we make moral decisions? But I mean, you get the idea, right? So these two questions are connected, and I think that okay, we're good on questions now. So let's see. What's the best way to handle monkey mind when it takes over during breath counting? Okay, there's a couple things that we can do, and as I go through, gosh, I may not even have time to talk about the basics of meditation practice, so we may have to do that, because that'll answer that question. And let's see what the other questions are and see if they also could be answered by a simple instruction. Ani's question is, yeah, the weighted down business. Yeah, I get the weighted down business. So we have to find a way to step back from the doom and see something else as a possibility. Just take one step back from it and see a different possibility. And this is the function of compassion meditation, is to show us a different possibility. So we'll get to that in a bit. Oh, there's a nice person in the frame with you, Wendy. Oh, there's a nice being. Yeah, cool. And visualization fits in, and Ani asks, where does it fit in? it fits in that it matches the vastness and luminosity of the mind. It's a way of meditating on mind's nature symbolically. Because when you visualize a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, you see that Buddha or Bodhisattva being made of light and yet being empty inside. The Dalai Lama said this when he was at KTD Monastery teaching about Chenrezig in 2006. He said, telling a person who doesn't understand what Mahamudra meditation is that they should meditate on their mind as empty luminosity, he said, they will look at you funny because they will have no idea what you're talking about. But if you say, visualize yourself as a Buddha made of light and empty inside, he said they can do that. And that allows them to rest their mind on an object of virtue. And then what happens at the end of a visualization meditation? It dissolves into an utter emptiness so that you get to experience your mind 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, like that. And that's the function of this process of visualization meditation. It's a virtuous object to place your mind on that is not just virtuous, it's like your mind, symbolically like your mind. And so then hopefully that will help. But we can talk about that more as the classes go on. I promise to come back to it. Is that good enough for a start? Yeah. I suspect it's not good enough yet.
No, it is. Thank you, Lama Kathy.
No, it is okay?
Yeah, that answers a lot. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Does it have anything to do with either shamatha or vipassana?
Both. It's
It
both.
does. Okay.
It's both. Bokhar Rinpoche in his book Chenrezig, Lord of Love says it's both.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Because staying with the image of a Buddha or Bodhisattva, just staying with it in some way or other, is shamatha. And seeing the emptiness of it, that's cultivating vipassana. So we can talk more about that as time goes on. But anyhow, but that's a quick answer. Okay, quick answer. Okay, good deal. So can you, and so this person is asking, hey, Sam, can you repeat? Yeah. Can you repeat what you were saying about moments? All thoughts are moments. And can you explain emptiness? I understood it as interconnected, inner being of everything. Yes, there are like 2 or 3 really amazing ways to explain emptiness. And Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, our founder, our guru, he said, you know what the easiest way to explain emptiness is? He said, impermanence and interdependence. That's the easiest way to explain emptiness. In other words, things exist, but not the way we think they do. Everything is impermanent and interdependent. That is really it. I think that there are different formulations of these ideas that communicate to different kinds of people. So we need all of these. Everybody says, why do you have so many words for everything? Why do you have so many explanations for emptiness and all of this? And it's like there are many different kinds of people. And you would not believe there are some people who really finally understand it when they talk about just that nothing is permanent. Everything is absolutely impermanent. Nothing is what it appears to be for more than a second. And then it becomes something else. And then, so there's lots of different ways to understand it. So for me, impermanence and interdependence, that everything is connected. All things come from causes and so on. So I can't go too much further than that tonight because I'm supposed to be talking about meditation, but I always drag too many concepts in. This is my background as a journalist. It's like there's something called writer's mind. It's where we see connections where they may not exist. But but we still see them and we can't stop ourselves from talking about them. So anyhow, but I will gradually get to all of these things. Moments, yeah. Okay. When you're sitting and you're attempting to follow the breath, let's pretend that we're sitting in meditation. The question about moments, okay? Sitting in meditation. and you're with the breath. It's coming in, it's going out. We're just using that as a general example. You could be attending to a visual object or something, But anyhow, your attention is on it, and then suddenly something kind of moves in your mind, and suddenly you're thinking about something that happened yesterday. Okay, you're thinking about something yesterday. At first, you're like, nah, and then you're like, yeah, I got to think about that. And then a minute or two or three passes, and then suddenly you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be watching my breath. And then my teacher basically said, you can label it, you can even call it thinking, or you can just merely touch it with your attention and then let it go. And then gently, very, very gently, not with judgment, not with guilt, not with anything, just like gently usher your attention back to the breath and think of it as a fresh start. And he said in one of his books, Khenpo Rinpoche says, you can have as many fresh starts as you want in a session of meditation. He said endless number of fresh starts. But so this is why I call it a moment, Sam, because okay, you have just let go of that thought, right? Like, where'd it go? It's like, okay, so what was that? Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, he also gave another example. He said, one of the examples they give about seeing the nature of a thought, he says, it's cutting bamboo stalks. He says, look, you cut a bamboo stalk, you lift it up, you look through it, and you see it's hollow. And it gives you the idea that, hey, maybe they're all like that. So if you see one thought disappear, yeah, I know, right? I know. Me too. It blew my mind too, buddy. It's like, and you see that thought and it just disappears, and you're like, wait a minute. That thought is, you mean I have been making myself up? I have been making up who I think I am from all of these little things, these little moments that disappear. Yikes. And at first it's a yikes, but later it's a, ooh, possibilities. And this means that habits can gradually be relinquished and new habits can gradually be made. And this is why the Buddha often did use water as an analogy for mind. He said, we are not a material soul. He said that was a popular theory, that we have a material soul. He said, nah. He said, I experience my mind like a stream. And like that saying, we have that saying. I don't know if they had that saying. You can't put your foot in the same river twice because it's always flowing, it's always flowing by and becoming something else. And
literal stream of consciousness.
I'll tell you what, stream of consciousness writing is what I'm doing right now. But but I prefer stream of being. I prefer stream of being. It's a little neater, In any case, the idea is that the banks of that river, and I got this from Chöling Rinpoche's book on karma, which hopefully we will not talk about in the next 5 minutes. But in that book, he talked about habit as being like the banks of the river that hold it in. And that will change its shape and its usefulness. And this is why we start out with a lot of selfish habits. And then as we practice meditation, we see our habits as being impactful. And we begin to make the conscious change to having less selfish thoughts and more selfish, unselfish thoughts and habits. So we're building a better set of banks for that river. And they're going to start, right now it looks like a selfish river, but eventually it becomes a selfless bodhisattva river. It's like that, so anyhow, that's kind of what we're working on. And this is why we're working on habits, and we're working on habits one thought at a time, because that's what they're made of. And this is why letting go of a single thought is a radical act that could actually begin to break us out of a prison we've been in for a while. I'm just saying, so something worth considering. So hopefully that took care of that. Oh my gosh, we only have 5 minutes. See, now this is why you got to give me an out. I got to give myself an outline. You don't have to do it. I'm the one that has to discipline myself. I'm not good at that. I'm just being completely honest with y'all. I really enjoy talking about meditation, and I prefer that we should probably do some, but I can't stop sometimes when I get going on something. But I just wanted to see your questions, but it does look like we have some good ones. How did you define luminosity? Chris asks. Our ability to experience and to know. That is correct. That is how I have heard it how I've heard it explained. But your mileage may vary. There may be a better way to explain it. But the idea is that mind has the capacity to experience all kinds of things. That's why I talked about the richness of this moment in the room that you're in, all the textures, colors, and shapes, and sounds and feelings that are in this room. You're experiencing the whole thing with your mind. And if you were to go to sleep and dream this room, it would be every bit as vivid. And if you were to close your eyes and imagine it, it might not be as vivid, but it'd be pretty vivid. So the idea is that's what they define as mind's luminosity, is that. Books out of stock? And is it similar to Thrangu Rinpoche's book, Practice of Tranquility and Insight? Tranquility and Insight, that book is very thick, and really it's a little more than I can handle in terms of me being able to explain it, because it's kind of up there. Oh, yeah. A person is sharing they've been off social media for years and don't miss it. Boy, I tell you what, you're my hero. You are my hero. What is the book title, please? Oh, good. Thank you. Is that Dana? Yeah. Or yeah, Donna or Dana? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. One of the two, Donna,
Dana.
I like them both. Guide to Shamatha and Vipashyana, right? Yeah. Okay. So we did the questions. We did handle the questions. So I appreciate this. And we're at the bottom of the hour. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share. I think I can put a link. Let's see if me and technology can make peace for a minute here. From my Dropbox. I'm going to share okay. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, this is good. I'm going to share a short article called Guidelines for Meditation by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. And I think I'm going to be, if you guys are good for another couple minutes, I'm going to review. You can download it from that link, and Wendy or whoever, you can copy that link and share it with people. You're going to say to yourself when you look at it, why is it highlighted? Parts of it are highlighted for the purpose of beginning meditators, so that they can see the most important instructions. So that's why that. And I have an unhighlighted version, but I can't put my hands on it right now. And basically what it does is it talks about the physical and mental application of how to meditate from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's viewpoint. And this is the instruction that we were taught when he gave his very first meditation instructors training in the late 1980s at KTD Monastery. He said, teach things very simply. He said, you build the posture from the bottom up. You're sitting either in a chair or on a cushion. So start with the legs and the seat, so that the legs are in a position that's stable. Thank you. I appreciate that, Wendy Sue. And the actual PDF is now available on there for download. Thank you. That you have stability. And there are lots of details I could go into, like, don't sit with your knees above your hips. It's better for them to be on the same level or below. And if you're sitting in a chair, place your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart, like that. And the hands can be placed in the lap, because that was this posture of the left hand on the bottom and the right hand on the top with the thumbs touching is discussed in the sutras. But Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said the method that was used by Marpa, Milarepa's teacher, of placing the hands palm downward on tops of the legs, he says is just fine. And in fact, Mingyur Rinpoche also teaches that. He said, if it was good enough for Marpa and his students, it's good enough for us, And because what Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche noticed is that when people sat with their hands like this, he said, very few of them could sit with a straight posture. He said almost everybody who did this was like slowly caving in, and he said that's why he decided that he would go with this same posture that Marpa developed, because he said it helps to people to feel the upper body to feel more supported, and it doesn't allow the slouching. And so you build the posture from the bottom up. You sit stably. He said, if you want to, you can, tuck in the muscles of the backside and ground yourself on your seat, and that you can have the back have its nice natural curves in it. My friend, the yoga instructor, said you can move your breastbone up if you want to have a straighter posture without the hunch. And that the shoulders, hands, and arms are taken care of by the placement of the hands on top of the legs. Chin is tucked in slightly so that you feel the neck vertebrae straighten. And then the eyes can be cast downward a few feet ahead of you, but you're not looking, you're gazing. Because if you start to zero in and focus on a point, it'll tire your eyes. So it's better to have your gaze be diffuse. Some people prefer to close their eyes, but if they close their eyes, then they go to sleep. So your mileage may vary. You'll have to make your decision based on that. And then finally, some people find a benefit in placing the tip of the tongue on the upper palate behind the front teeth, and then flattening the tongue, which allows the neck muscles and jaw muscles to, I said neck, I meant jaw muscles to relax, because a lot of people hold tension in their jaw. So there you have it. It's built from the bottom up: your legs, your seat, your back, the shoulders, hands and arms, the chin, the gaze, and the tip of the tongue. And he said, you just sit in that posture for a minute and do nothing. Just feel it. Feel your body in the posture. And then he said you can start with a deep breath. Breathing in and then breathing out. And then allow the breath to come and go naturally, following the course of the breath as it comes in and goes out. And he said, if you like to, you can count: in breath, out breath, mentally count 1, in breath, out breath, mentally count 2, and so forth. He said, pick an easy number, 7, and just do that. And he said, so what you'll get when you do that is a short period of attention that will then be followed by a period of wandering. But then you notice the wandering, you notice it, you touch it. He said you can even label it, thinking, if you want to, and then you let it go. And then you consciously, gently bring your attention back to the breath for a fresh start. And then you will have another short period of attention to the breath as it comes, it goes. And that will be followed by another period of mental wandering. And it'll be like this for the entire session. And this is what Mingyur Rinpoche meant when he told the little boy to give his monkey a job. The job you've been given is to be present with something, your breath, or maybe it's a visual object, maybe it's a picture of the Buddha that you place on the table in front of you, gazing generally at the image or the statue. Just allowing, your eyes can literally look at it forever, but your attention may wander, and your job is, your monkey's job is to bring your attention back to that. Even if you have to do it a lot, it's okay, as long as you cultivate kindness toward yourself as you come back. So that's the basic method of meditation. And Rinpoche said, leave your meditation on good terms. And he said some people, when they first sit, it's easy, but it gets harder the longer they sit. And he said, well, they need to sit for a short period. They have to do it more than once in a day. He said other people, when they first sit down, it's a struggle. But then they finally get to a place where they can do the technique and come back and do it and come back and do it and come back. And he said then they have to sit. That person has to sit long enough to get to that place. So that's just a basic instruction. And we're only 7 minutes late. So I wanted to make sure at least I got started with that. I'm sorry we can't do more tonight, but I will try to structure my presentation a little better next time so that we have a little, because you'll be meditating before I come on at 6:30. And then we can begin with a review of the technique. And then we can discuss challenges that people have on the cushion. And that will be the main topic for the first part of the next presentation, will be the challenges. And what do you do when you experience challenges in your meditation on the seat? And what are your challenges? And we can go over that. And you can start typing them out now. And and be ready for me next time. And because I wasn't ready for me, so it's like it's okay. But who was ready for me was Thrangu Rinpoche. He had a really good presentation. So now I'm only 8 minutes late. So this worked out great, and I'm glad we were able to do all of this tonight and have a basis for what we're going to be talking about. And then when we get together next time, we'll review the instructions, talk about what's difficult, what to do with the two great obstacles we have, which are sleepiness and agitation. And then we'll talk about off the cushion experiences, like what do you do when something happens to you when you're not, not meditating.
Quick,
So,
is it
great.
possible to do a PDF of Lama Kathy Rinpoche's instructions?
Yes, we can. I'll tell you what.
Because I can't do Acrobat for the Google thing.
No, don't you worry about it. We're going to find a way to get that to you. Maybe we'll email it to you. I see somebody nodding there. Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay. They'll
Thank you.
drop that over to you. Yeah.
Just give us a few days, but we'll get it out there.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's very kind.
Yeah, fantastic. I like it when it's easy.
Mhm.
Well, then let's gather together all the goodness that we accumulated here. Gather it together, and dedicate it particularly to these agitated times that we're in, and that we find a way to work with ourselves and to work with the situation that's healthy for us, that helps us to be present for ourselves and helps us to be present for others. So I'll recite the short dedication prayer in English. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings, may we free all beings, may we free all beings. And I'm glad you're here. I see, it's like, hey, glad you're back too. That's great. Yeah, fantastic. So we will see you next time, and take good care of yourselves and each other, okay?
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Okay, Om Mani Padme